There is an odd vibe in the air whenever I think about Travis Strikes Again, Grasshopper's return to No More Heroes, and Suda's return in a long time to the actual director's chair. A game that in one part is as daft as the previous two entries, partially entirely different, and then also deeply profound in a way that comes out of the left field. For a game that appears to pride itself on its parodies and continuation of the story of a man who jiggles his sword like a 14-year-old watching his first porno, Travis Strikes Again is something that left me feeling this upbeat melancholy. Bittersweetness washed over me with glee as Travis monologues to an empty room about his innermost thoughts, while just under an hour ago, a homage to classic genres opened up to me. Goichi Suda reduced the team size down to just a handful of people for this project, proudly building it on the Unreal 4 engine, and returns Grasshopper to its rather humble beginnings. After seeing the rise in indie games as a mainstay of the industry, Suda wanted to recreate that feeling they had back when they first started. And it shows here, not only as a piece of media that looks back on Grasshopper's past, but also how it treats its contemporaries. It's fascinating. Travis Strikes Again sees Travis 7 years removed from No More Heroes 2, older and wiser, but still invested in his hobbies, to a fault. He's effectively run away from something and is hiding out in the woods of Texas in a splashy trailer. While he hides, a guy by the name of Badman, the father of No More Hero 1's second-ranked boss, Batgirl, hunts down Travis to exact revenge for killing his daughter. In the process, they're sucked into the Death Drive Mark II, an elusive video game console with supernatural abilities, like resurrecting the dead. Now Travis and Badman must hunt for the Death Balls, complete each game contained within, and discover the mysteries of the console itself. The story, in typical Suda fashion, is utterly bananas, which is a lovely security blanket as you're pelted often with introspection, depression, and a positive message as well. No More Heroes mechanics have been reduced to that of a top-down view that will occasionally pan around or become a side-scroller, and uses a more traditional light and heavy swing rather than the low and high mechanics seen in the first two games. It translates well, but the mileage in how well it goes per game varies. I thoroughly enjoyed my time in the first couple areas, but it became more enjoying the vibe than the actual game itself after a while. There's an awesome looking vector graphic drag race game that is so maddening that I genuinely have a blind spot of rage in my mind while beating it. Areas in the coffee and donuts section to do with combat became tedious very quickly, while the game immediately piqued my interest once it began doing No More Heroes' and Grasshopper's best work with breaking the fourth wall in a long time. Swings and roundabouts, I guess, but you know, that's part and parcel for a variety pack of games that ultimately seems to be a gateway to where Suda's true intentions appeared to be, and that's telling more story with Travis that wouldn't particularly fit within a true sequel. Travis Strikes Again might follow the first game's heavy and unsubtle approach to analysis of culture and the self, but it does so with a thundery undertone of being older, wiser, and at a juncture in life. Goichi Suda has said that Travis does pull from himself as inspiration, presumably why Travis felt like the only constant between No More Heroes 1 and 2. But this feels like seeing an old friend after so many years apart. Sure, Suda has actively been involved with the majority of Grasshopper Manufacture's games, but he hasn't actively directed anything in a long time. There's been no true Suda joint, as the shadows of the damned marketing team would say. This not only feels like the perfect addendum to No More Heroes, but also for Suda to truly let loose. It not only makes logical sense within the context of the lore of the game, but also in context of how the game literally presents itself. It's a commemorative game, a celebration, reflection, and ultimately a platform to be used. I don't think in the entire time that I've played video games, I've seen such heartfelt love for games within a game. Maybe Smash Brothers. Easter eggs come, Easter eggs go. References here, references there. Sometimes you see stuff in other games where it's cross-promotional, like when TF2 would have exclusive items for Deus Ex or Sam & Max, but that felt more like advertising. This is different. Travis can access a PC to purchase unlockable shirts that all straight up feature key art from indie developers that feels like the conversation was, hey, can you send me the PSD with your key art in, please? It feels like a celebration of where games are now, rather than a cheap marketing trick though. It's a glimmer of pure positivity in an industry so fraught with fragility that the game begins to explore itself. Coffee and Donuts take what might have been this grandiose mech game set in a vast area and utilize an adventure game space to explore why a character trapped in an endless cycle of nothing to do would want to kill themselves in an elaborate mystery. The genre and era Brian Buster Jr. came from moved on from the old days, leaving this to forever loop with nothing new to do. The maddening Golden Dragon GP features a particular favourite area of mine, as Travis finds himself in a classic-style single room from Japan, in awe at its grotesque splendour. However, looking closer, it's dingy, lonely, barely any furniture, a simple room for simple, cheap living. A VR headset is the most expensive thing in that room, and it sits on the table ready to be used for escaping. All the action takes place outside of the room. A beautiful yet sad song plays over the top. When translated, the song lyrics talk of leftovers for breakfast, hard rice, how tears overflowed. This room, it's probably where a lot of people, and in particular here, developers, started out while making their masterpieces. It might be where Suda started. Look back upon the past and remember where you came from. Being a game developer might be shit at times. Travis Strikes Again goes even further down this path, exploring developmental hell via foreshadowing in its text-adventure visual novel sequences. Travis Strikes Back, a character prominently featured in the trailer for No More Heroes 3, talks about how the lead developer got irate with the team and canned the whole project, even though they worked hard on it. The game does go into the fact that this now CEO brutally beat her, and Travis literally strikes back because of this. You then play through a small Unreal 4 test area that is a gateway into yet another game as an appreciation for where video games have spawned from, as it takes on this asteroid approach with thick neon vector lines that you can imagine inside a rectangle cabinet searing into your eyeballs and the monitor itself. From the modern extreme to the past extreme. Travis Strikes Again wants you to appreciate where your games come from. It does this best in a very large surprise return of Garcia, Hotspur and Johnson from Shadows of the Damned. This was a game that Suda expert Genry Perez described as having a more interesting history than game itself. What started out as a unique and at the time revolution for the horror genre wound up being a shadow of its former self. Kuriyami was to be more focused on fear, especially what lays in the dark. The townsfolk would change as well as the player character. There was less focus on combat, and it was a concept, as one of the recurring characters in Travis Strikes Again explains, too big for publishers to grasp. The technology hadn't caught up, and no one would dare take it on. It died so that Garcia Hotspur's adventure could live. But even though Shadows of the Damned failed to be a hit that it was poised to be by EA's brief marketing campaign that slotted Suda and his old colleague Shinji Mikami of Resident Evil fame as leading the project, in reality they were simply overlooking roles, executive directors, producers. He pitched something and something else got made in its stead. While a black mark on Suda's legacy, he appears to hold it dear in spite of everything that happened through development. Travis Strikes Again teases a sequel by setting up plot for a game that's in a game that's supposed to be setting up another game. It is purely fascinating to see play out, and I adore that level of humour. This love of projects that didn't happen as planned occurs again in the sequence during Strikes Back. Travis is challenged by 4 mysterious characters, all from games that Grasshopper never managed to make. He chops them down without remorse, as Suda and his team probably had to in the past, just to make room for the hells of profitable development. There's even a reference to Juliet from Lollipop Chainsaw. where they begin to explore what happens to these characters after their games hit big and suddenly sidelined, never to be seen again. All of this is entwined via Travis, whose conversations with the bosses of each area delve deep into the psyche of the character. But because of the crack of the fourth wall has been split wide open at this point, it indirectly talks to the player. Games are for playing, not living. There's no life without sorrow. Giving up isn't an option. His lonely, silent monologues that sit in stark contrast to the loud, constantly noisy game explore a side of the character rarely seen. In previous games, he's quick to get over the death of Thunder Ryu, his master, and Bishop's death takes a back seat to the plot of No More Heroes 2, even though that's what kicked it off. Here, 7 years on from everything, it feels as if things are starting to take their toll on Travis. You can't shrug everything off. Sometimes you have to look inwards, be frank with yourself, and how you plan to face the future after these events. While the whole game might ooze a goofy, humorous vibe, it is simply masking the truth. You can't be this all your life. You're older now. Enjoy what you enjoy. But there's more to life out there. If you're a newer, younger player buying this on the Switch, in a Steam sale, or on PS4, maybe coming off the recent re-releases of No More Heroes 1 and 2, don't make your life about a singular aspect. Suda and Grasshopper have survived by developing and producing games through their entire career that take chances, not following the easy road, and each game, while similar in spots or straight up sequels, have done something vastly different than before. Even duds like the Diabolical Pitch game for Kinect about a demon baseball, or the low-key Cinemora, which featured a depressing wartime tale through the eyes of a side-scrolling shooter. Even Lollipop Chainsaw, which is actually Grasshopper's biggest financial success, once again goes against the grain by using the cheerleader and high school aesthetic in a genre dominated by heavy rock, metal, angels, demons, and men. You cannot rely on being the same stagnant thing through your entire life. Each character that Travis defeats is stuck in a moment of time, and Travis putting them out of their misery also harkens back to Suda's original concept of kill the past. If you can't kill the past, you can't move on. Travis is the entwining factor here, as Travis is the embodiment of this lesson. While No More Heroes 2 didn't utilise much, if any, of Suda's exploratory ideas, it did situate Travis back in the No More Heroes motel, his dingy, cum-infested place from the first game. A man filled with riches from his previous exploits and in possession of the first Real Fights mansion has decided to remain where he's most comfortable. In Travis Strikes Again, his trailer is basically a stretched out version of the motel. He wants comfort and familiarity in a world that you can't just settle for that anymore. You have to be more than the familiar. I think it's partially why Suda and Grasshopper feature so many different titles in their unlockable shirts. These games tried something different in an industry filled to the gills with familiarity. Travis even shows sympathy towards Dr. Juvenile, the main antagonist of the game, after discovering what happened to her in the past, without the caveat of doing this after beating them or killing them. A major shift, but very subtle for the Travis Touchdown character. The world might have no more heroes, but it doesn't mean we have to let life escape us. Don't get bogged down with just one thing. Face it head on. Pile drive it into submission. Win! Head into the Garden of Madness. Travis Strikes Again ends with Travis seeing that he has to face things head on. His bloodlust raring to go once again, and that he can't hide from his problems any longer. The game eventually fades back into an Unreal test area. You're told they're in development. It looks like Suda and Grasshopper Manufacturer are finally taking this on themselves, facing the third entry, and then they too can move on.